I'll be honest, guys, there was a big part of me that was very skeptical of a CM Punk return. There was never a single doubt that Punk's return segment would be an all-timer. That's not what I'm saying. But would a 42-year-old chick magnet Punk really be able to come out of retirement and kick ass? That absolutely was not a guarantee. He was beat up when he left, and 42 is very different than 35 when you're trying to start up again. But lo and behold, Charlie McAvoy Punk has proven me a fool for being skeptical, because this man has been having the best run of his career in AEW, and I know that statement is going to ruffle some truffles, but really, I've just been genuinely enjoying the work that CM Punk has been doing since his return to wrestling, and would like to provide my case as to why this run has clobbered the most ass of all the runs he has had. Simple as that, really. And of course, if Punk's run takes an unexpected nosedive after Double or Nothing, then feel free to dunk on me in the comments for all time always. I don't mind. Keep coming back because evergreen content is just hunky-dory. I'm Tempest hailing from partsFUNknown, and this is why CM Punk's AEW run is the best of his career. Punk's early career falls under a pretty wide range. Whether it was the not teenage anarchist of ROH, the straight edge savior, or the best in the world, what I would consider the consensus best runs of his career, unless you really like IWA or something, they all captured the minds of fans through their fantastic matches and captivating character work. Throughout his career, CM Punk was able to connect to his audience as a character, and honestly, I think that's always been his greatest strength as a wrestler. Since arriving in AEW, CM Punk's character has been more raw, real, and emotional than he had ever been on a consistent basis. Whereas the pipe bomb promo was a sudden emotional peak, a jarring display of realism that we as fans weren't used to at the time, now the line separating CM Punk the character and Phil Brooks the person had been blurred to the point that it is hard to believe we're getting anything but the real authentic human behind all the living color and ice cream bars. Wrestling has always had its fair share of crazy, wacky characters, and if you prefer the more over-the-top performances of the straight-edge society Punk, I certainly won't say you're wrong for it, but I just gravitate more towards the grounded human characters these days. Since he walked through the tunnel at the United Center, Cookie Master Punk,
I mean, what the f*** is a Cookie Master?
has been one of, if not the most interesting character in all of wrestling. He's taken that mantle from Hangman Page, and soon that might not be the only thing he'll take from him. But what has made this character so interesting? If you watched my video last year chronicling the rise of everyone's focused Yeehaw Man, you will know a big portion of that story is what makes Hangman Page a good hero. Upon watching CM Punk's promo in Long Island on December 8th, I once again found myself pondering what makes a good hero as I became intrigued by the direction taken by Punk as a character. In true Bret in Canada, Shawn in America fashion, Punk was booed in favor of the worst human on earth probably, MJF. Punk was inarguably the hero of this tale, but his closing line was what really opened my third eye. Referring to MJF, Punk tells the crowd, "To me, if that's your guy, if that's who you back, you're all chicken shit." Whereas your tried and true white knight babyface would probably ignore the jeers and take it in stride, the aging Punk rocker stood in front of the first crowd to really boo him so totally in almost a decade and said, "No, f*** you." And so this got me to question, is it better to be a character like Hangman Page who is more wholly good, or is it better to be a character like CM Punk who feels wholly real? I don't think there's a right answer to that question. However, it is that realism that made CM Punk's work must-watch since his return. The first real example of this came as Chris Masters Punk stood opposite Eddie Kingston in a promo duel on Rampage. Now, Eddie Kingston is the most authentic speaker in all of pro wrestling and a ludicrously popular star, so a promo between these two guys, who very publicly did not like each other, could not feel anything but authentic. What we got was a very personal, very real moment, pulling out dirt from decades beforehand and providing a reason for these two stars to have a match on pay-per-view. In one promo battle, CM Punk and Eddie Kingston told you everything you needed to know about their history and how they felt about each other, and they sold a ton of pay-per-view buys in the process. That to me is a massive success in one segment, but it would be indicative of what was to come as well. There was valid criticism that Punk's AEW run was a bit slow to get off the ground, as he didn't launch himself into a main event feud immediately after All Out, but to me it wasn't an issue. His segments were never bad in the meantime, and AEW still told a logical story of Punk dipping his toes in slowly with matches against Matt Sydal, Daniel Garcia, and Bobby Fish, rather than jumping in the deep end after 7 years away from the ring. That, and the aura of CM Punk returning to wrestling, really was enough to carry his segments those first few months. Honestly, it probably still could, because I don't know about you guys, but this still hasn't even sunk in for me. From that point onward, CM Punk's presence in AEW deepened, and immediately following his defeat of Eddie Kingston at Full Gear, Punk would turn his attention to where it would remain for most of his run so far: MJF. While the Eddie Kingston rivalry opened the CM Punk brand of emotional worm cans, the MJF feud furthered the actual character work of both Punk and his misguided former fan. There could be a whole video dedicated solely to the CM Punk MJF rivalry, as it is chock full of long talking segments and I could never go over every detail here. But the themes on display during this rivalry are what really needs to be focused on, rather than the actual words. When this rivalry started, MJF was taking potshots at Punk for his failed UFC career and for walking away from WWE. They generated big pops in the building, but those were low-hanging fruit, but intentionally so, as called out by Punk himself. The real sauce was coming. And as this rivalry progressed, you could almost feel things getting more and more personal each week until the entire storyline took a completely unexpected turn. MJF revealed his supervillain origin story for the first time in AEW, emotionally talking about being abused by anti-Semitic teammates on his football team in high school, but taking solace in meeting his hero CM Punk, only for Punk to quit wrestling in 2014, leaving Max feeling abandoned. Again, that Eddie promo broached the idea that everyone's favorite, CM Punk, who has admittedly been a prick at times in his life, could be a scumbag. And now Punk wasn't being shouted at by an angry Eddie Kingston because of locker room beef from 20 years ago. He was being told by a crying fan that he had failed him. Punk's next promo was the most powerful one yet, as Punk, when faced with the consequences of his actions, did not lash out, but instead looked inward at himself and said that he'd always asked himself whether he was the good guy, and now his answer is he's trying. Hook this content into my goddamn veins. This promo really should be put on display because it is perfect. Literally perfect, could not be improved. I could go on and on about how too often these days you see babyfaces letting their guard down around heels, and when it bites them in the ass, you think to yourself, what a stupid babyface. But this segment is just so much more nuanced than your typical wrestling schlock. Punk knows who MJF is, but he lets his guard down in one attempt to make MJF see the light, only for MJF to once again stoop so low as to betray his idol. It's like if the Killing Joke ended with the Joker killing Batman instead of the two having a fucking laugh. Because while Punk may have been naive to trust MJF even a little, leaving himself open to an attack in an attempt to save MJF's soul, to put this in way too dramatic of terms, was the heroic thing to do. It was the right thing to do. You simply aren't finding this kind of ridiculously in-depth character development on other weekly wrestling shows these days, folks. Again, real characters are my cup of tea, and CM Punk has told one of the realest feeling long-term stories, but still in a very concise manner that I can remember experiencing as a wrestling fan. For years, Punk always said it was less about the dream match and more about the story he could tell if he were to return to the ring. Honestly, I don't think there is a story AEW could have told for CM Punk's first year back in wrestling that would have been better than this one. If you're comparing the character work of this run to the other periods in his career, I have to give the point to this one. Hey, did you know that CM Punk was referred to WWE at one point by Mick Foley, and Mick Foley went to high school with Kevin James, and do you know what Kevin James rode in Mall Cop? A Segway. Thanks for that segue, brain.
I got you, homie.
To take this conversation in a far different direction, how is it also possible that after 7 years away and at age 43, this is the best working CM Punk there has ever been? Well, there are a few reasons as to why this is the case. First of all, it is entirely possible that Charles Murphy Punk has just gotten wiser and sharper despite not accumulating any reps in the ring during most of his time away. Punk has never been the most athletic or coordinated guy. In his WWE DVD, his trainer Ace Steel would say that Punk had lead in his ass, and you can watch old clips of Punk struggling to do basic wrestling roles, so it's very clear that this did not come easily to him as it did to some others. As such, I don't find it hard to believe whatsoever that Punk would be smarter about his wrestling style today than he was in Ring of Honor or even in WWE. I can believe that. I can believe that Crash Bandicoot Punk will have become a smarter worker over time. I can also believe that my man is living this run out as one giant Bret Hart tribute tour, and ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I am all the way here for it. From literally the first match back against Darby Allin at All Out, the Bret Hart tribute started. Less than 30 seconds in and Darby gives him an arm drag, and Punk does a little head tilt like, damn, alright, it's go time. This thing right here. Perfectly ordinary thing to do, except it's a tribute to Bret's match with the 1-2-3 Kid. Does this make the matches any better? Not considerably, but if you're someone who likes the smaller details in wrestling, these are some of the moments of fan service that AEW really excels at. Enhancing the story if you understand the extra context, but not making it the focal point of the story so it becomes too niche. And honestly, if there is one person you should emulate if you want timeless, consistently great matches, I don't think there's a single better person to study than Bret Hart. Punk's matches haven't been perfect. a slip off the top rope against Penta here, a messed up pin on Bobby Fish there, but botches and mistakes are not a death sentence for a match if those involved can actually work. I don't think you needed this masked man to tell you that CM Punk can certainly work. And this really is why this run has been phenomenal so far, in my opinion. At the time I'm writing this, CM Punk has had 18 matches in AEW, and as I'm looking down this list, there are only maybe 2 or 3 that haven't been at minimum really good. The Shawn Spears match was like 10 seconds, and the Wardlow bit was more of an angle than a match if you want to get specific. But otherwise, every time we see CM Punk in AEW these days, he's having a great match or cutting a great promo. If the rivalries and storylines are the building blocks of a great run, then the matches are the cement that seeps between the cracks and holds everything together. Part of this unbelievable string of performances is due to the strength of the AEW roster, of course. I mean, a lot of people like to point to Punk's WWE Championship reign as his best run, and I won't deny the impact and importance of that reign. But as it was happening week to week, Punk was facing the Miz's, R-Truths, Rybacks, and Big Shows of the world more often than not. You can take the differences in company philosophies about matches out of things for a moment, but I don't think the names I just listed are going to outwork the likes of MJF, FTR, Penta, Lee Moriarty, or Dustin Rhodes. Not impossible by any means, but the results are in front of us, and I have to say these matches are f***ing bomb! Also keep this in mind, the things that have made the AEW roster feel so special apply to CM Punk as well. He's able to wrestle his own style again, and mesh that style with the wide array of styles AEW has to offer. This is something that hasn't been possible for Punk since his days in ROH, and now he has nearly 2 decades of additional experience in ring psychology to pull from. These awesome TV matches have also been paired with some excellent performances on pay-per-view, with Punk and Eddie Kingston having one of the most emotionally driven matches of Full Gear, and Punk and MJF having the most emotionally driven match of Revolution. But honestly, as much as CM Punk has completely reinvigorated his career with his fantastic matches and his captivating character work, those are not the biggest reason as to why this has been his best run. The biggest reason is he's happy. Look at him. Look at CM Punk literally cry tears out of his face because he loves pro wrestling. Congrats, Righteous Reg. You earned the PlayStation trophy for making CM Punk cry. But who thought we would be seeing this? I tell ya, I probably could have been convinced in like 2015 that Punk would someday return to wrestling, but I never thought I would see the day that CM Punk would be weeping because wrestling means so much to him. He's not shy about it. He's been loudly proclaiming how much he loves wrestling since the day he came back. But more than just being able to hear it, we're able to see it. You can see it on his face every time he dove into the crowd with a real excited energy. You can see it when he talks about the business with renewed vigor. You can see it when Masario Canter blasts out to the audience at Revolution, only for the fans to sing it right back to him. These aren't meaningless, neat little moments that pass amidst a sea of other wrestling things. They matter. Why is CM Punk's AEW run the best of his career? Because it matters the most. It matters most to the character of CM Punk, but it matters most to the person that is Phil Brooks as well. Don't get me wrong, I don't know CM Punk personally, but I can't help, as a fan, but to watch this entire AEW run with the biggest smile on my face, knowing that this man is happy and fulfilled. And even if this doesn't end up being his all-time best run when all is said and done, that doesn't mean it will have been any less special.